The cold concrete wall pressed against my back as the click of a gun hammer echoed through the empty parking garage. The boss's son, Declan, stepped closer, his face half hidden in shadow. "Don't scream," he whispered, the barrel of his pistol now pressing into my ribs. "Just hand over the commission check, Margot." My fingers trembled as I reached for my purse. $47,000, the largest commission in company history. 3 months of sleepless nights, endless client meetings, and meticulously crafted proposals, all culminating in this moment, with a gun against my side. "Please," I whispered, "this is everything to me." Declan's lips curled into a smile that made my skin crawl. "Should have thought about that before you started showing up Daddy's golden boys." His free hand yanked my purse away. "Women like you don't understand how things work here." He rifled through my bag until he found the envelope, thick and white with the company logo embossed in gold. The check that would have paid off my mother's medical bills, covered my brother's college tuition, and maybe, just maybe, given me enough breathing room to stop living paycheck to paycheck. "Perfect," he muttered, tucking it into his jacket. "Now, you're going to count to 100 before you move. And if you tell anyone about this, well," the gun dug deeper into my side. "Let's just say Daddy always protects family over employees." My heart pounded in my ears as I closed my eyes and began counting. The sound of his expensive Italian loafers clicking against concrete faded as he walked away. A car engine roared to life somewhere in the distance. By the time I reached 60, the garage had fallen silent again. I slid down the wall until I hit the ground, tears streaming down my face. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. 3 security cameras pointed at me from different angles, all of them dummies installed for show. No witnesses, no evidence. Just like he'd planned, the phone in my pocket vibrated. A text from my mother. "How did today go, sweetie? Did you get your big check?" My fingers hovered over the screen, unable to type a response. How could I tell her that everything we'd been counting on was gone? That the surgery she needed would have to wait? That my brother might have to drop out of school? I could almost hear Declan's laughter echoing through the garage as I sat there, broken and humiliated. But somewhere beneath the fear and despair, something else stirred, a feeling I hadn't experienced since my father abandoned us when I was 12. A cold, crystalline rage that sharpened my mind and steadied my hands. This wasn't the first time the boss's son had done this. I'd heard whispers, seen the resignation letters, watched talented women leave without explanation. The pattern was clear now, too clear to ignore. As I picked myself up from the dirty concrete floor, wiping tears from my face, I knew with absolute certainty Declan had just robbed the wrong woman. What he couldn't possibly know was that before coming to work at Griffin Financial Advisors, I'd spent 3 years working for a private investigator. Before that, I'd double majored in accounting and criminal justice. And most importantly, what Declan didn't realize was that I never, ever kept the real commission check in my purse. If you're as shocked as I was when that gun pressed against my side, take a second to like this video and subscribe. The journey I'm about to take you on isn't just about revenge. It's about justice, in a world where the rich think they're untouchable. Drop a comment if you've ever had someone take credit for your hard work, and stick around to see how this unfolds. My name is Margot Sinclair, 32, single, and before this moment, entirely unmemorable to most people who met me. That was by design. I learned early that people underestimate those they don't notice. At 5'4" with brown hair typically pulled back in a simple ponytail, I blended into backgrounds and boardrooms alike. I'd been working at Griffin Financial for 16 months. The company specialized in investment packages for mid-sized businesses looking to expand. Our commission structure was legendary in the industry. 15% on any deal you closed personally. Most advisors averaged 2 or 3 medium-sized clients per year, earning respectable but not spectacular income. No one had ever landed Regional Foods before. 42 locations across 3 states, and they'd turned down Griffin's proposals 6 times in the past decade. Their CFO was notoriously difficult, their CEO skeptical of financial advisors in general. But I'd spotted something in their quarterly reports that others had missed, a pattern of expansion followed by cash flow problems that my investment strategy could solve. It took 3 months of research, 5 presentations, and countless late nights, but I closed the deal. A $315,000 contract, meaning a commission check of $47,250. Life-changing money for someone like me. The morning the deal finalized, people actually noticed me for once. Handshakes, congratulations, Invitations to lunch I'd never received before. Even Mr. Griffin himself, Declan's father, called me into his office to personally thank me. "This is exceptional work, Margot," he'd said, leaning back in his chair. "Regional Foods has been our white whale for years. How did you make it happen?" I explained my strategy, the patterns I'd identified, the personalized approach I'd taken with their executive team. Mr. Griffin nodded, his expression unreadable. "Very impressive. The commission check will be processed today. You've certainly earned it." As I turned to leave, he added something that should have been a warning. "My son mentioned he was impressed by your presentation materials. He's learning the business, you know." I'd only met Declan Griffin a handful of times. At 35, he was 3 years older than me, but carried himself with the entitled confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. He occasionally appeared for company meetings, always dressed in suits that cost more than my monthly rent, always looking slightly bored. The accounting department processed commission checks on Fridays. Everyone knew this. The checks would be printed, placed in company envelopes, and distributed by 4 p.m. Most advisors immediately headed to the bank afterward, a ritual of success. What I didn't know then, but discovered later, was that 5 other women had left the company in the past 2 years after landing major clients. Each one had cited personal reasons or new opportunities. Each one had departed within days of receiving large commission checks. At 4:15 p.m., I collected my envelope from accounting, making a show of peeking inside and smiling. I tucked it into my purse with deliberate care, noticing Declan watching from across the office, pretending to review documents with his father. "Congratulations again," said Tina from accounting. "That's the biggest check I've processed in years." I smiled, feeling Declan's eyes on me. "Thanks. I can't wait to deposit this." "Heading to the bank now?" she asked. "Actually, I have a dinner reservation to celebrate. I'll deposit it first thing tomorrow." I said this loudly enough to be overheard. Then I headed for the elevator, purse clutched close to my side. The parking garage beneath the Griffin Financial Building has 4 levels. Executive spaces on level 1, senior advisors on level 2, everyone else relegated to levels 3 and 4. My assigned space was on level 4, the darkest and most remote section. As I stepped off the elevator, I immediately sensed I wasn't alone. The garage was too quiet, the air too still. My footsteps echoed as I walked toward my car, keys gripped between my fingers like a weapon. I'd almost reached my car when I heard him. A soft footfall behind me, deliberately timed with my own steps. I turned, but it was too late. Declan moved quickly, shoving me against the wall, the gun already drawn. What happened next? The robbery, the threats, left me sitting on that concrete floor, watching him drive away with what he thought was my future. But here's what Declan didn't know. I had been watching him for weeks. I had noticed the pattern. And most importantly, I had already been to the bank that morning, depositing the real check hours before accounting ever handed me the decoy envelope. What he had stolen was an empty envelope containing nothing but a folded piece of paper. The question wasn't whether I would get revenge. The question was how complete his destruction would be when I was finished. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the gun against my ribs, heard Declan's voice in my ear. Around 3 a.m., I gave up trying and pulled out my laptop. The Griffin Financial Employee Directory stared back at me. I scrolled through names, faces, departments. The women who had left suddenly after big commissions, Teresa, who landed the pharmacy chain, Audrey, who brought in the restaurant group, Kimmy, who secured the manufacturing client. Each one gone within days of their biggest success. I pulled up their social media profiles. Teresa now worked in another state for half her previous salary. Audrey had started over in a completely different industry. Kimmy's profile hadn't been updated in months. I sent each of them a simple message. "Did something happen in the parking garage after your big commission?" By morning, Teresa had responded with a phone number and 4 words. "Call me. Not kidding." My hand trembled as I dialed. She answered on the first ring. "Who is this really?" Teresa's voice was sharp with suspicion. "Margot Sinclair from Griffin. I just landed the Regional Foods account." A long pause. "And something happened in the garage?" Declan Griffin put a gun to my side and took my commission check. She exhaled slowly. "So he's still doing it. God, I hoped someone would have stopped him by now." "You too?" "Me, Audrey, Kimmy, and at least 2 others I know of. We all kept quiet. What else could we do? His father owns the company, the security cameras are fake, and he made it very clear what would happen if we talked." My stomach tightened. Why didn't you go to the police? Teresa laughed bitterly. With what evidence? It's his word against ours. Plus, his father donates to every police charity in the city. The one time someone tried to report it, before my time, the complaint mysteriously disappeared. I wrote down everything she told me. The exact same pattern each time. Women who excelled, big commissions, robberies in the garage, and afterwards, either resignation or transfer requests. What did you do? I asked. I ran, Teresa said simply. I took a job 3 states away. Started over. What else could I do? I thanked her and hung up. By noon, Audrey had also responded to my message, sharing an almost identical story. Kimmy never replied. That afternoon, I walked into Griffin Financial with a bandage on my temple and makeup, simulating a bruise on my cheek. I'd spent an hour on YouTube learning how to create realistic injury effects. As I limped slightly toward my desk, conversations halted. Eyes followed me. Whispers trailed in my wake. My direct supervisor, Paige, rushed over immediately. Margot, what happened to you? I blinked rapidly, forcing tears to my eyes. I was mugged last night. They took everything. My purse, my phone, my commission check. Paige's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, did you call the police? Yes, but I lowered my voice. They said there's not much they can do without witnesses or clear security footage. The whispers spread through the office like wildfire. Within 20 minutes, Mr. Griffin himself appeared at my desk, concern etched on his face. Miss Sinclair, may I speak with you in my office? I followed him, noting how similar his walk was to his son's, the same entitled swagger, just aged 30 years. Once inside his wood-paneled office, he gestured for me to sit. I've just heard about your unfortunate incident. Are you all right? I'll be okay, I said, touching my fake bruise gingerly. The doctor said nothing's broken. Where did this happen? His voice was carefully neutral. In the parking garage. Level 4. After work. His expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on his desk. Did you see who did it? It was dark, I said, but he knew my name and about my check. Mr. Griffin's eyes narrowed slightly. That's concerning. Perhaps an inside job. We'll investigate, of course. He cleared his throat. About your commission, we can stop payment on the check and reissue it. It's the least we can do. Thank you, I said, looking appropriately grateful. That would help so much. My mom needs surgery, and I was counting on that money. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course. Family is everything, isn't it? That evening, Declan wasn't at the office, nor did he appear the next day. By Wednesday, rumors circulated that he'd been sent to handle business matters at a client site in another state. Meanwhile, I continued my research. Using skills from my PI days, I dug into Declan's life. His social media was filled with photos of expensive cars, exclusive clubs, and luxury vacations, all funded by a job where he rarely appeared. I discovered gambling debts at 3 casinos, a pattern of complaints from women at clubs he frequented, and a suspended license for driving under the influence that had mysteriously disappeared from court records. On Thursday, my replacement check arrived. Mr. Griffin handed it to me personally. I've also arranged for security escorts to the bank for anyone receiving commission checks, he announced, loud enough for nearby colleagues to hear. Safety is our priority. I thanked him profusely, playing the role of the grateful, naive employee. The moment he walked away, I noticed Paige watching me with an odd expression. Can I talk to you? She whispered, gesturing toward the break room. Once alone, she closed the door and turned to me, her expression grim. Be careful, Margot. What do you mean? This isn't the first time something like this has happened, and those who push too hard for answers don't last long here. I feigned confusion. I don't understand. She glanced at the door nervously. 3 years ago, a woman named Lynn landed the hospital group account. Huge commission. She was mugged in the garage too, but she swore she recognized the attacker and went to the police. What happened? 2 things. First, the police report vanished. Second, she was fired for performance issues a week later. No references, blacklisted in the industry. Last I heard, she was working retail somewhere. My heart raced. Why are you telling me this? Paige's eyes met mine. Because I was Lynn's friend, and because yesterday, when Mr. Griffin announced the security escorts, I saw something in your eyes. You're planning something, aren't you? The question hung in the air between us. A test, a trap, or possibly an ally. I just want to move forward, I said carefully. Good, Paige nodded. That's smart. She turned to leave, then paused. By the way, your bruise makeup is smudging on the left side. I froze. What? What? She gave me a knowing look. I did theater for 10 years. Next time, use setting spray after application. Before I could respond, she walked out, leaving me stunned. That night, I received another message, from Kimmy this time. They're watching you now. They know you're asking questions. A chill ran down my spine. I immediately checked my apartment door. Locked, deadbolted, windows, secured. Still, I slept with a chair propped under my doorknob and a kitchen knife beside my bed. The next morning, a flower arrangement waited on my desk. The card read simply, "Wishing you a speedy recovery. Management." I noticed a new maintenance worker, installing what appeared to be a real security camera in the corner of the office, aimed directly at my desk. Page stopped by mid-morning. "The IT guy needs access to your computer for a system update. Company-wide thing," she said loudly, then whispered, "They're checking your emails and search history." I thanked her with my eyes. When the IT technician arrived minutes later, I welcomed him with a smile, knowing my work computer contained nothing incriminating. My real research was all on my personal laptop at home. At lunch, I received a call from an unknown number. "Miss Sinclair?" A man's voice, unfamiliar. "This is Detective Powell with the police department. We'd like to follow up about your mugging report." My pulse quickened. I hadn't filed a police report. This was a trap. "I'm sorry," I said. "I think you have the wrong person. I haven't filed any reports recently." A pause. "Are you sure? We have a Margot Sinclair who reported being mugged in a parking garage on Friday." "That wasn't me," I insisted. "Perhaps another Margot?" After hanging up, I immediately texted Teresa. "They're setting traps. Someone just pretended to be police." Her response came quickly. "Get out now." Not worth it, but it was worth it. Not just for me, but for Teresa, Audrey, Kimmy, Lynn, and every other woman Declan had robbed at gunpoint. That afternoon, Mr. Griffin called me into his office again. This time, his demeanor was colder. "Miss Sinclair, security found something interesting on their new cameras." He turned his monitor toward me, showing footage of me at my desk, making phone calls. "You seem to be spending a lot of company time on personal matters." "I'm sorry," I said, lowering my eyes. "I've been dealing with insurance about the mugging and my medical bills." "Of course." His smile was thin. "We understand. By the way, did the police ever contact you about your case?" The trap was so obvious it was almost insulting. "No, they said they'd call if they found anything, but I'm not hopeful." He nodded slowly. "Well, we certainly hope they catch whoever did this. We value our employees' safety." As I turned to leave, he added, "Oh, and Miss Sinclair? My son will be returning to the office on Monday. He specifically mentioned wanting to check on how you're doing after your ordeal. Isn't that thoughtful of him?" The threat couldn't have been clearer if he'd painted it on the wall. That night, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by notes, research, and plans. The company was watching me. The Griffins were setting traps. And Declan was returning, undoubtedly to ensure I stayed quiet. They thought they were closing in on me. What they didn't realize was that I was counting on exactly that. Because sometimes, to spring your trap effectively, you have to let your target think they're the hunter. What I did next would either bring the entire Griffin empire crashing down or cost me everything. Monday morning arrived with a knot of tension in my stomach. I'd spent the weekend preparing, barely sleeping, obsessively checking every detail of my plan. When I walked into Griffin Financial, Declan was already there, leaning against Paige's desk, laughing about something. Our eyes met across the office. His smile widened, predatory and confident. He straightened his expensive tie and walked directly toward me. "Margot, I heard about what happened." His voice carried just the right amount of concern. "Terrible business. How are you feeling?" Every eye in the office was on us. This performance was for them, establishing his innocence, his concern, his alibi. "Much better, thank you," I replied, matching his public facade. He lowered his voice. "We should catch up properly. Lunch, perhaps? I'd love to hear more about how you landed regional foods." The implied threat hung between us. I gave a small nod and he walked away, satisfied with his power play. Throughout the morning, I felt the weight of surveillance. The new security camera tracked my movements. Colleagues casually stopped by my desk to chat, likely reporting back to management. My computer had been tampered with, the angle of my monitor slightly different, the keyboard not quite where I'd left it. At noon, Declan appeared at my desk. "Ready for that lunch?" We took his car, a sleek silver sports car that probably cost more than what most Griffin employees made in a year. He drove us to an upscale restaurant where the maitre d' greeted him by name. Once seated in a private corner booth, his demeanor changed instantly. "Let's cut the shit," he said, voice ice cold. "You've been asking questions, contacting former employees. That stops now." I feigned confusion. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you." He leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop digging. You're going to tell everyone how supportive Griffin Financial has been after your mugging. And in 3 weeks, you're going to accept a transfer to our Milwaukee office. And if I don't?" His smile turned cruel. "Remember Lynn? She thought she could prove things too. Now she can barely get a job stocking shelves." He took a sip of water. "My father built this company from nothing. Our name means something in this city. Yours doesn't. So who do you think people will believe?" I looked down at my plate, playing the part of the intimidated victim. "I understand. Good girl," he signaled for the waiter. "Now order something expensive. My treat. Consider it compensation for your discomfort." During lunch, I excused myself to use the restroom. Once alone, I sent a pre-composed text to an unlisted number. Phase 1, complete. When we returned to the office, I acted subdued, defeated. Exactly what Declan expected. That afternoon, Mr. Griffin called me in again. "How was lunch with my son?" "Very nice," I said quietly. He was concerned about my well-being. "Excellent." He slid a paper across his desk. "This is a transfer opportunity to our Milwaukee office. Better position, slight pay increase. I think a fresh start might be good for you." I took the paper with trembling hands, real this time, but not from fear, from restraint, from the effort it took not to reveal my hand too soon. "I'll consider it," I said. "Do that." His dismissal was clear. Over the next 2 weeks, I played my role perfectly. The questions stopped. I became the model employee, arriving early, leaving late, accepting the upcoming transfer with quiet resignation. Declan relaxed, appearing less frequently at the office, confident that his threat had landed. But beneath this compliant exterior, I was assembling the final pieces. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Paige cornered me in the parking garage one evening, glancing nervously at her watch. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered, pressing a USB drive into my hand. "But Lynn was my friend, and I can't watch it happen again." "What is this?" "Financial records. I work in accounting, remember? Declan doesn't just rob women at gunpoint. He's been embezzling for years, small amounts from client accounts, disguised as management fees. His father covers for him, adjusts the books." My heart raced. "Why are you helping me now?" "Because you're not the only one who's been building a case," she said. "And because yesterday they announced my position is being eliminated due to restructuring." I squeezed her hand. "I won't waste this." That night, I analyzed the files. Paige had provided the missing link, proof of financial crimes that went beyond the robberies. With this, I could move forward with the final phase. 3 days before my transfer, I requested a meeting with Mr. Griffin to discuss transition details. When I entered his office, Declan was there too, examining documents at his father's desk. "Ah, Margot, come in," Mr. Griffin said. "Declan wanted to join us since he'll be handling some of your accounts after you leave." "Perfect," I said, sitting down. "Actually, I wanted to discuss something with both of you." Their expressions remained neutral, expectant. "I've been thinking about my future at Griffin Financial," I began. "We're excited about your fresh start in Milwaukee," Mr. Griffin interrupted smoothly. "Yes, well." I took a deep breath. "I've decided not to accept the transfer." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Declan's smile disappeared. "That's disappointing," Mr. Griffin said carefully. "May I ask why?" "Because I'd rather stay here and continue building the relationships I've established with clients like Regional Foods." Declan leaned forward. "We really think the Milwaukee opportunity would be better suited." "I'm not going to Milwaukee," I said firmly, "and I'm not keeping quiet about what happened in the parking garage." The mask slipped. Mr. Griffin's expression hardened. "Miss Sinclair, think very carefully about what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Your son robbed me at gunpoint, just like he robbed Teresa, Audrey, Kimmy, Lynn, and others before me." Declan laughed, but it sounded hollow. "That's absurd. You have no proof." "Actually," I said, reaching for my phone, "that's where you're wrong. This was the moment everything hinged on. The culmination of weeks of planning, of careful positioning, of allowing them to believe they had the upper hand. The night you robbed me, you took an envelope you thought contained my commission check. What it actually contained was a blank piece of paper, because I'd already deposited the real check that morning. Confusion flickered across Declan's face. You see, after hearing rumors about women being robbed, I took precautions, including wearing this. I pulled out what looked like a simple silver pen from my jacket pocket. It's a high-definition audio-video recorder. I captured everything in that garage. Your face, your voice, your gun, your threats. Mr. Griffin's face paled. You're bluffing. Am I? I turned to Declan. You said, and I quote, should have thought about that before you started showing up daddy's golden boys. Women like you don't understand how things work here. Declan's expression confirmed it before he could compose himself. That recording would be your word against mine. Mr. Griffin recovered quickly. And no jury would believe an edited video over a respected business leader's testimony. You're right, I agreed. Which is why I didn't just record Declan. I've spent the past month building a case. Testimonies from 6 former employees who experienced the exact same robbery. Financial records showing patterns of embezzlement disguised as management fees. And most damning of all, evidence of your systematic cover-ups, including using company resources to intimidate victims. I placed a thick folder on his desk. This isn't just about one robbery. It's about years of criminal activity. And copies of everything are already with my attorney, 3 news outlets, and the State Financial Crimes Unit, set to be released if anything happens to me. The silence in the room was deafening. Declan looked to his father, panic replacing his usual arrogance. What do you want? Mr. Griffin finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Justice, I said simply. But I'm realistic about how the system works for people like you. So here are my terms. First, financial restitution to every woman Declan robbed, plus damages. Second, you both resign from Griffin Financial immediately. Third, the company establishes a trust fund for female employees' education and advancement, administered by an independent board. You'd destroy everything we've built over a few commission checks? Mr. Griffin's voice shook with rage. No, you did that yourselves. I'm just bringing it to light. And if we refuse? I stood up, gathering my belongings. Then tomorrow morning, every client, employee, and regulator will receive evidence of your crimes. Your choice. As I walked toward the door, Declan lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You think you can threaten us? Do you know who we are in this city? I looked him directly in the eyes. I know exactly who you are. That's the problem. Mr. Griffin pulled his son back. We need time to consider your proposal. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow, I said, and walked out. The next morning, I arrived to find the office in chaos. Overnight, news had broken that both Griffins had resigned, citing personal reasons. An emergency board meeting had installed Paige as interim CEO. She caught my eye across the crowded office and gave me a subtle nod. On my desk sat a company-wide memo announcing a new zero-tolerance harassment policy, substantial changes to security protocols, and the establishment of the Employee Advancement Fund. By afternoon, my phone was flooded with messages from Teresa, Audrey, Kimmy, and others. News of substantial settlement offers from Griffin Financial's attorneys had reached them all. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Paige in what had been Mr. Griffin's office. The nameplate on the door now read, Paige Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. The board made it official this morning, she said, beaming. And my first official act is to offer you the position of Chief Operations Officer. I blinked in surprise. Are you serious? Dead serious. This company needs rebuilding from the ground up. The Griffin's reputation is in tatters, turns out. Once people started looking, there were financial irregularities going back decades. We need someone with integrity and intelligence to help restore trust. What happened to them, I asked. Declan is facing charges for the embezzlement. Hard to wriggle out of that one, even with their connections. Mr. Griffin avoided criminal charges by cooperating, but he's lost everything. The company, their family home, their standing in the community. I thought about the scared, humiliated woman I'd been that night in the parking garage. How far I'd come. How far we'd all come. 6 months later, Griffin Financial was renamed Phoenix Advisors. Our client list had actually grown. Integrity, it turned out, was good for business. Teresa returned as our new head of client acquisition. Lynn headed our newly formed compliance department. Every woman who had been victimized was offered a position if they wanted it. And the parking garage? We sold it and built a new state-of-the-art facility with actual working security cameras, emergency call buttons, and the brightest lighting system money could buy. Sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or police. Sometimes it comes from women who refuse to stay silent, who gather evidence instead of just hope, who turn trauma into determination. If you've ever felt powerless against those who seemed untouchable, like, share, and subscribe. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And sometimes when you think you're cornered with no way out, that's exactly when you find your strength. Remember, the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one with the gun or the money or the power. It's the one they underestimate.